What Ferrari didn't let you hear could change everything. On lap 42, moments after Hamilton's pace suddenly dropped, Riccardo Adami came over the radio with an instruction the TV broadcast never played. It wasn't about tires, it wasn't about fuel, it was about protecting something or someone. The exchange was short, coded, and left Hamilton in stunned silence. Minutes later, he crossed the line P12, but in the garage, engineers were already whispering about a strategy change that didn't match the data on his screen. Was it a mistake or a deliberate move? The truth behind that radio call may be the clearest sign yet of where Ferrari's priorities really are, and Hamilton's reaction tells us he knows it. It was lap 42, and Lewis Hamilton's pace had just nosedived. The TV commentators blamed tires, maybe even traffic. But inside the cockpit, something far stranger was unfolding. Riccardo Adami's voice came over the radio, calm, clipped, and loaded with subtext: Plan Delta. Confirm. That phrase never made the world feed. Hamilton paused, almost as if processing the weight of what he'd just heard, then replied in a flat tone: Copy. But why now? No explanation came. The channel went silent. Within minutes, his lap times fell further, and by the checkered flag, he was P12, his worst finish since joining Ferrari. But the real story wasn't the number next to his name. It was the fact that in Maranello, engineers were already whispering that Plan Delta had nothing to do with Hamilton's race at all. It was about protecting someone else's result. And the timing, mid-battle, with points on the line, made it almost impossible to write off as coincidence. Inside Ferrari, strategy codes are meant to be innocuous, harmless phrases that tell the driver to adjust pace, save tires, or switch fuel modes. But Plan Delta wasn't a standard call for Hamilton this season. In fact, telemetry analysts later noted that his tire degradation at the time was well within limits, and fuel was not an issue. So why issue a pace-altering command? One engineer, speaking off record, claimed it was a shadow plan, designed to alter the gap between cars, effectively creating a buffer. And the only car that benefited from that buffer, Charles Leclerc. The timing matched perfectly with Leclerc's push lap sequence, allowing him to run in clean air and avoid the risk of being undercut. On paper, this is just smart team strategy, but from Hamilton's seat, it was something else entirely. A moment when the race stopped being his. And the tight, deliberate wording from Adami suggested this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment call. It had been decided well before Hamilton even lined up on the grid. Drivers develop an instinct for when a race is still theirs to fight for, and when it's been quietly taken away. For Hamilton, that instinct kicked in the second he heard Plan Delta, without a follow-up explanation. His tone over the radio flattened, his steering inputs lost their earlier aggression, and the data later showed a subtle shift. He stopped attacking curbs, braked earlier into turns 1 and 2, and rolled more speed into corners without the usual sharp throttle pickup. It wasn't tire saving. His wear rates were well within limits. It wasn't fuel. Consumption was on target. Those close to him say he's been here before, when a team quietly prioritizes the other side of the garage. The Hungarian GP was meant to be his chance to claw back momentum after a rough run, with a strategy tailored to fight for points. Instead, he was recast as a moving shield, holding position while Leclerc executed his push laps in clean air. In the media pen, Hamilton called his race useless and hinted a lot is going on in the background that's not great. To the public, it was frustration. To those aware of Plan Delta, it was confirmation of something bigger. In strategy terms, a window is the gap a team creates to give one driver the optimal pit stop without traffic interference. At the Hungaroring, that window opened perfectly for Charles Leclerc, and only because Hamilton's pace dropped at a crucial moment. The lap charts show it clearly. Leclerc was approaching a cluster of backmarkers, seconds away from losing tire performance in dirty air. Then came Plan Delta. Hamilton's pace eased just enough to let Leclerc pit, rejoin ahead of the pack, and push on fresh tires. To the casual fan, it looked like smart team play, but the context made it controversial. Hamilton wasn't fighting for a podium, but he was still in position to score valuable points, points he needed to close the championship gap. By becoming the moving part in Leclerc's strategy, he lost any shot at a recovery drive. What stings more is that, according to one insider, this wasn't improvised. The call was in the plan before lights out, they claimed. If true, it means Hamilton never had a fair fight from the moment the race began. After Plan Delta was called and the pit window for Leclerc executed flawlessly, Hamilton's radio went quiet. For over 10 laps, there were no performance updates, no encouragement, no tactical discussion, just silence from Riccardo Adami. In the high-pressure world of F1, that absence is deafening. Radio isn't just for strategy. It's a constant feedback loop that keeps a driver connected to the team. Cutting that link, even briefly, can be psychological as much as tactical. Engineers later claimed it was focus time to let Hamilton manage his stint, but those close to him see it differently. It's the kind of silence that says, "Your role is done today," one paddock source told us. By the time comms resumed, Hamilton's body language was clear. Leaning into the cockpit, minimal chatter, just circulating. It was the posture of a driver who knew the outcome was no longer in his hands. And in Maranello, some believe that's exactly how they wanted him to feel for the rest of the race. After the race, the numbers told a story the cameras didn't. Telemetry from Hamilton's SF24 showed consistent lap times in the high 1.24s after Plan Delta was issued, a full 0.8 slower than his pace earlier in the stint, despite similar tire condition. Brake temperatures dropped, energy deployment patterns changed, and fuel mix modes were altered in a way that prioritized efficiency over outright speed. Analysts noted these were not the kind of adjustments a driver makes on instinct. They were coordinated changes, matching what you'd see when a car is protecting a team objective rather than chasing its own. Meanwhile, Leclerc's sector times lit up green and purple, gaining over 10 seconds across his next 5 laps and solidifying his track position. Officially, Ferrari called it optimal race management. Unofficially, whispers in the paddock labeled it what it looked like, a controlled sacrifice. And for a driver like Hamilton, who came to Ferrari to fight for wins, that data was as painful as any finish outside the points. For Hamilton, Hungary wasn't an isolated frustration. It was the latest in the sequence. Across the last 5 race weekends, there have been at least 3 occasions where strategy calls or pit sequences seemed to benefit Leclerc at Hamilton's expense. In Monaco, an early tire change left him exposed to an undercut. In Silverstone, a delayed radio message cost him track position. And now in Budapest, Plan Delta neutralized his race completely. Each incident alone could be explained away as bad luck or split-second decision-making. But together, they form a pattern, one that insiders claim reflects Ferrari's quiet prioritization of their established driver. It's easier for the team to build around the one they know, especially when the championship fight is tight, a source told us. Hamilton's arrival was supposed to disrupt that comfort zone. Instead, he's discovering that influence inside a team isn't won in one season. It's fought for, race by race, decision by decision. And in that fight, he may already be starting from behind. By the time the team packed up in Budapest, the official story was tidy. Leclerc maximized his opportunity. Hamilton struggled with balance and track position. But inside the paddock, few believed it was that simple. The whispers about Plan Delta and the deliberate pace drop had already reached rival engineers, some of whom were quick to point out that these tactics aren't accidental. They're calculated. Hamilton didn't come to Ferrari to be a supporting act. Every move he's made since joining, from closed-door meetings to pushing his own development ideas, has been about securing equal footing, if not outright leadership. Hungary was a reminder that in Formula One, the battle isn't just against other teams. It's fought within your own garage, in coded radio messages and split-second calls. Hamilton's glare in the post-race debrief said it all. He'd recognized the game being played. And as the season heads into its decisive stages, the real question isn't whether he can beat Leclerc on track. It's whether he can win the war for Ferrari's trust.